Hi, Kate.
Hey,
Happy holidays.
how are you? It's so funny you say that. I like just spent last night, wait, was it last night? Whenever it snowed, I decided that it was okay to put Christmas stuff up. Normally I'm like the Friday after Thanksgiving, but I just decorated and I put in like all my little plugins that smell like pine. And I'm very much in the spirit.
I know that's
As,
right.
as much as you can be in 2020, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm seeing some familiar names. Um, so a few things. One, I'm sorry that you're back with me. And two, it is the same test question. So obviously, I mean, I think you're going to you'll learn something each time. But it is the same. We're actually working on trying to get some other education team members to maybe switch off so it's a little bit different. And if you don't like my teaching style, then hopefully that might help. But I just want to let everyone know that this is going to be the same. The other thing is, I know that I see a lot of black backgrounds and white names. If you are willing to put your camera on, I would love that. You can unmute at any point. You can chat. It's, oh, good luck, Susan. I mean, I can talk. If you've been on my class, you know that I could probably talk to a wall if I needed to for 3 hours, but that's not fun. So I'm going to try to make this go as fast as possible. So I typically give the same spiel. How many of you have taken the Crammer with Hondros?
I have. This is Chinitha.
Okay,
and I think that you do a wonderful job. Just so you know, I'm back because I took the test, I passed the state, and I failed the national by like 10 points.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll definitely work on that. I'll give you some strategies here. So yeah, I like to start by saying this is nothing like the Hondros Crammer. So if you've taken a Crammer course before, usually they make you sit in silence and you have to you take the whole test. And then you go over each question. That's way too boring. We don't have time for that. We are going to review each of, I'm going to give you some test strategies, and then we're going to go through a test together. Susan, I'm going to actually go through that here in 1 second. So I'll just introduce myself. My name is Kate LeSueur. I am the Director of Education for the Midwest of Howard Hanna. And actually, since COVID, kind of been jack of all trades, doing a lot of our virtual classes throughout the whole company. I am 33, and I got my license at 22, but my first job ever was at Smythe Crammer before Howard Hanna bought them. And been doing opportunity time, which you'll learn what that is. It's basically an assistant that gets to take leads. Opportunity time, open houses, my whole family's involved. So I like to start by saying, you know, who's this young chick that's going to try to teach me something about real estate? It's in my blood. And in fact, I tried to get out of it. I like to tell people this fun story. I let my license expire as a passive aggressive way to tell my mom, stop giving me open houses. I don't want to be in real estate. And it didn't work. Obviously, I'm right here. So in that time period, I actually got my master's in education and became a teacher. And I teach high school and young adult education. So you have the best of both worlds. You have an educator and a real estate agent here to teach you how to take this test. So what I like to tell people before, and then the last thing that I should probably never say out loud, and all the state people would get upset. So after I let my license expire, I had to retake the test, and it was 8 years after I had taken the classes. So of course I was like, well, I'm going to fail. I don't know anything about real estate. I haven't even taken the classes. And what I did is, knowing what I know as from being a teacher and making high school kids who don't ever want to listen to me pass a state test, I looked at those strategies and I said, okay, what do I really need to do? And I'm going to tell you all right now, the most unconventional way to study for this test is to look at what you need to know the most. What are the big, I used to say the big 3, but it's really the big 4 subjects that you need to know almost every vocab word from, every question. And don't worry, I'm going to give you this whole PowerPoint, but it's contracts, agency, You're going to get all this. So don't worry if you have to write down contracts, agency, real estate practice. And then I kind of clump real estate finance and, oh my gosh, calculations, the one that everyone hates. So I never even looked at leasing or property management when I took the test, because why would I spend any time on 2 questions? If I knew that there were going to be 13 questions on contracts, that's what I needed to know. I have a better chance of getting a question on contracts that I need to know the answer to than leasing and property management. So, or land control. So that's really the first thing. So I like to tell people to take a practice test and see where you're really struggling. And if it's in one of those 4, that's all you got to study. If it's in one of the lower ones, I don't even know what another one would be, like leasing, property management, land use, government control, I wouldn't even waste time. So I actually passed the test the first time. Both times I had to take it, which is just a lovely thing to be able to say. And so that's really my strategy in helping you all. So how this class is going to work is I'm going to go over some quick strategies. I'm going to be able to share this with you after. I'm going to share the video. It's going to be on YouTube, all that good stuff. But I'm going to ask you to get a highlighter. Or excuse me, I guess you wouldn't need a highlighter because you don't have this yet. 2 pieces of paper, and you're gonna mark it down 1 to 80. And then you're gonna put another line, and you're gonna put every word on here that you don't know. And you're gonna remember after this to go make some flashcards on those vocab words and really study them. I do see the chat lighting up a little bit. Oh, so Susan, on that, yeah, so I need to turn those all on. I didn't want to make it public. So Susan's I'm going to show you guys a website that I have. I need to rephrase some of those questions. I took them from other tests and I was worried about making it public if it was like copyright. So I guess now the cat's out of the bag since I'm recording this and it's going to go on YouTube. Hopefully I don't get in trouble. Okay, so this is what you guys need to know. If you've never taken the test, the first thing I'm going to tell you to do is download the PSI bulletin. It's going to go over what you need to know for the test, how to register, practice test questions, and I'll show you where all that is. If you take both tests at the same time, it's $61. If you are on this class right now and you have not registered to take the test, you need to do that. They are delayed. It's taken a long time. And once you've put your application in to take the test, you have a year. So you have time to get that test taken from when you're approved. But the worst part is that you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. And you're like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And then you finally register and you've kind of forgotten everything. So that's your first assignment for me. Register to take the test, $61. If you take one at a time, it's $41. There's your timing and how many questions. If you took the same amount of time on every question, it's 1.5 minutes. That's a very long time for each question. So what you want to do is if it's a very long worded, story type of question, take your time reading it. If it's one that you definitely know the answer to, go ahead, write that or put that answer down and fly through. If it's one that you are reading it and you really aren't sure, you can flag it and come back to it. I'd rather you get the questions that you know right and rush at the end for questions that you should have gotten that you weren't able to because you were rushed. For those of you who've taken classes with me, you know that I talk pretty quick. I always will have a water bottle. It's my way to slow down. But if I am going too fast, just interrupt and say, whoa, Kate, calm down. You got to slow down here. Okay, so how I ended up studying and what I think is the best way to study is just knowing all of the definitions, especially in those big 4 agency contracts, financing, calculations, and real estate practice. That's really what you want to know. A few reasons why. If there's a question on there where you don't recognize a word, it's probably not the answer if you know all the vocabulary words. Also, half the battle is just understanding the different vocabulary words to get the answer correct. If you're, and you know what, I actually meant to give this to you guys. A lot of times you can get confused with the different wordings of questions. I would make a chart on types of ownership and do a chart. And I'll actually send this to you guys. I have to remember to do that. for like, you know, tenant in common, joint tenant, stuff like that. And really understand that's a really great way to learn the vocabulary if you're putting them next to one another, because really, if you know what something isn't, you definitely know what it would be. I think that's the biggest, that's how I took the test, and that's my advice. If you've got kids, this is my advice. If they're taking any state test, is that if you can go through the test question, if you're like, I have no idea what this answer is, if you can get rid of 2 answers, always just get rid of 2, even if you can just get rid of 1. And then if you have to guess, you're a lot closer to the right answer than if you're just like, oh, I have no idea, I'll just guess whatever. You know a lot more than you think you know. Just take your time on those questions. Know the ways you can lose your license. Answers with absolutes are generally not correct. You'll know when that happens. The other thing that I always say here is that if there's ever a question that says, according to the terms of the contract, that's most likely the answer. According to the terms of the contract, every contract's different. There's not a specific amount of money for earnest money. You don't even have to give earnest money. Dates are always based on the contract. Different types of chattel based on the contract. So if that's an answer, it's gonna most likely be that. Okay, know your ors and e's. Ors give, e's receive. Again, I will send this to you all, but that's a really easy way to remember, especially with mortgagor, mortgagee. Okay, I always do this. I always have notes and then I never look at them. Okay, so know the way you can lose your license. Also really important to know here, so the Division of Real Estate, they're just the ones basically that are going to give you your license, place it on deposit, administers the license law. That's where you're applying for your license. The division does all that licensing. The commission, they're the ones that are like, if you do something wrong, if you get in trouble, they kind of are the police power. They're promoting the canon of ethics. They enforce all the license law. And there's actually a little chart here, or not a chart, like a matching flashcard. They're virtual flashcards, and it will give you what the task is. And then you could say, okay, commission or division, and then flip it and it will tell you. What I would do with those is I would actually make a chart and put commission and division, and then write those out from that site that I'm gonna share with you guys.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So everything that you're going over right now, you're gonna send it to us in an email, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the high school teacher in me, because if I gave it to you beforehand, you wouldn't listen to anything I'd say, right? I have to wait until the end of the class to give it away. All right, so civil rights in cases, again, also incredibly important. There will always be a fair housing type of few questions on there. That's usually part of real estate practice. I was a high school history teacher and psychology teacher, but not that that's going to be in these test questions. So I know a lot of this based on like historical anecdotes. Civil Rights Act of 1866. I hope we all know what happened in 1865. If you don't, it's the end of the Civil War. So this is certainly going to be about race. Federal fair housing is going to, this is actually Lyndon Johnson. He's going to reiterate, and he's going to add some more ancestry, stuff like that. And I'll give you a chart knowing the difference. He's going to uphold, that's the word I was looking for. He's going to uphold the Civil Rights Act of 1865. Jones v. Mayer does the same with the Civil Rights Act of 1866. And I'm going to give you a little story about that to help you remember. And then the Ohio Civil Rights laws. If you are someone that really likes to know, the wording, here it is kind of verbatim, all persons without distinction of race or color, that's 1866. Federal Fair Housing Act, so race, color, disability, national origin, religion, sex, familial status. Actually, I think I said ancestry, and that's Ohio, so ignore what I just said earlier. Okay, so if you want to know a story about Jones v. Mayer, this is kind of fun. So basically, Alfred Mayer owned a real estate company, Alfred Real Estate Company. Jones was a Black man, and he charged that the real estate company in St. Louis, Missouri, would refuse to sell him a home in a neighborhood because he was Black. And so the government upheld that they weren't able to do that. This is going to extend the Civil Rights Act of 1866 to private businesses as well. Ohio civil rights. So the two that are on here that weren't on the federal, this is very important for the Ohio test: ancestry and military status. And again, I will give you this chart, but you really want to know this. Okay, everyone's favorite part, math. Do we have any people that really like math on here? Oh, just
What?
All right, so I hate math, and I'm going to teach you how I learned it, and I hope it will help. I think sometimes we won't listen to how Joseph knows it because he's probably a big math genius and gets it really quick. I'm going to give you a much easier way to understand the math questions. When in doubt, divide. All right, so if you really have no idea, that's typically what it's going to ask you or need you to do. The best part about the math questions is that the answer's on the page. So you can plug those in, and it should make sense when you see those math questions. But this is a very common, I'm going to give you some advice that I think a lot of people don't think about. Let's say that you have a question and it's asking for a monthly payment, and it gives so an example would be the amortization schedule, and it's going to say 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, or 30 years. If you're going to plug in the answers, don't do 15 or don't do 10 or 30 years. Do 15 or 20, because you know after that you're either going to have to answer 3 more or check the answers of 3 more or 1 more. But if you do the lowest number or the highest number, if it's not that, you have to keep going down and down and down. So you always want to do a middle answer if you're plugging it in. Don't waste time trying to get the exact answer. And then of course, every math question, I would just flag, even if you've answered it, to remember to go back and check if you do have extra time. The things you just need to memorize: 36 sections, 1 township, 680, wow, right in front of me, 640 acres in a section. And then an easy way to remember square feet in a mile, it's just 3, 4, 5, 6, but the 4 and 3 are inverse. So just think 3, 4, 5, 6, it's actually 4, 3, 5, 6. And then a very silly way to remember feet in a mile: 5 people went to a party and 2 ate nothing. 5 went to a party and 2 ate nothing. If you are looking at the area of something, if it's giving you a word question and it says, you know, you're at the lot is 200 by 300, it's always going to start with frontage feet. And that's, you guys should know that. That's just in general in life. It's always going to be frontage feet to start. If you miss all and only the math, you're going to get a 90. So it's okay if you miss the math questions, but then you got to do really well on all the other ones. Math scared the crap out of me. I know a lot of people really don't like it. We haven't had to take math since, you know, we were back in high school. So I'm going to try to make sure that that's not what's going to happen. But if you are really wasting time on math, just skip it and make some educated guesses. All right, by far the most important slide on this entire PowerPoint is this one right here. So the exam topics. There are 13 to 14 questions on contracts. If you are not doing well on contracts of your practice test, you need to know contracts. You need to study contracts. You gotta learn those vocab words. Agency, practice of real estate, and then financing and calculation are tied. Leasing and property management isn't even on here. That's 2 to 3 questions. And I really didn't look at leasing and property management or land use and control. There's certain stuff that you're just gonna remember from there, eminent domain, things like that. You're going to know those questions when they come up. Do not waste your time studying those topics. All right, we ready to take the test? So for some accountability, I really like when people put in the chat what they think the answer is. You can do it privately or anonymously if you don't want to, but I think then it helps me know that you've read the question and you've taken that. So what you're going to do when we go through this, I've actually color coordinated all of the sections so that you know what topic it is. And then you'll be able to say, oh, wow, I really didn't do well on agency, or I really need help with contracts. So I've actually labeled them for you, which I hope makes life a little bit easier. On the other side of your page, so the first section we're going to start with is valuation and market analysis. So we're going to have 5 to 6 questions on that. And then on the side of your page, if there's a word you don't recognize under valuation and market analysis, I want you to write that down and go back to that section in your real estate book and make a flashcard for that word and learn it. If you don't recognize a word and you feel like you do know the glossary really well in all your test books, it's probably not the right answer. If you have no idea, I'm just reminding you, get rid of 2 answers and then just guess if you have to. There is a rule of thumb that I've seen on a lot of these other test prep questions online, is that if you get an 80% consistently on 5 different exams, you're probably ready to take the test. All right, we ready? So I will probably try to give you a minute on each question. Unless it's a very easy question, then I say, okay, guys, 30 seconds, because we don't want to get used to taking too long. And then if I'm getting a lot of answers in the chat, I'll know that we're ready to go. So the first
can I ask something real quick?
Yes.
How do we tell you the answers we get? Do we type it in somewhere?
Yeah, you're gonna put it in the chat.
I don't even see where the chat is. I'm sorry, I don't know.
So at the bottom, do you see like if you roll your your cursor over the screen somewhere, something should pop up that has like your mute option, your stop, all of those how you muted and unmuted.
Yeah.
On the end of that, you should see something that says chat. Oh, Joseph is gonna just be helping me on all of these. I hope you're not busy next December to do this, but click Control H and it shows up. I had no idea that was a thing.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I got it. Okay, go on.
Cool. All right. So the first topic is valuation and market analysis. Which approach would be best when appraising a 15 to 20-year-old house? I'm seeing a lot of right answers and pretty quick. Yeah, all right, so I'm starting you guys on some pretty easy questions just to get you feeling good. Again, just whatever makes sense here. If you had to get rid of one, which one would you get rid of? You had to get rid of an answer?
D, definitely.
Okay, I was like, yeah, that's not the right answer. You could get rid of that. I would just get rid of amortization because it doesn't really make sense in this sense at all as for which approach. And then of course, if you're just doing, a regular single family home, the answer is B. I did mention making a chart for certain things. You could make a chart on types of valuation, and you could make a little, sales comparison, cost approach, and then income capitalization. If you did not recognize one of these words, you would write that down under valuation and market analysis, and then remember to make your flashcard, later tonight or tomorrow.
So you said if we didn't do what again? I'm sorry.
So if you didn't recognize one of these, if you didn't recognize one of these, I would write that down on my page under valuation and market analysis to remember to make a flashcard. But what I would also, so I'm a visual learner, and I think just because I was a teacher, we made charts all the time. I would make a chart that just has types of appraisal or valuation methods and put cost, sales and income, and then say, for what type of property, when is it used, what are the benefits, and really that's just a much higher level thinking of trying to remember this than just those definitions. All right, this is a 30-second question, less than.
Is there some way that I can move this, the chat bar? Because it's like right.
Yeah, you should be able to click on any of the windows that pop up and move them wherever you want.
Mm.
Does that work? You move in it?
So,
All All right, so lots of right answers here. Definition of depreciation, loss in value. Everyone's right. There we go. We've got 4 more, I believe, on this one. The cost approach is often given more weight in the appraisal of. So this, we're kind of all over the board here on this one.
The cost.
Okay, so there's, I see one correct answer. I want to just point this out. Take a look at these, look at that cost approach. When do people want to use the cost approach? So it's just right there. The cost of creating that same type of building, it's going to be for commercial and industrial properties. So when you make that chart, you really want to make sure that you put, you know, for what properties does this use? What are the benefits? What are the negatives behind that? Which type of depreciation is almost always incurable? Please read this and think about it. Oh, you guys are doing much better than the last month. All right, so if you want to make another chart, types of depreciation, you can make another chart. What are these different obsolescence? You know, what are the different types of depreciation? How do you fix them? Are they curable? Are they not? You can make another chart on that. So almost everyone got that right. It is C, factors outside of your control. So maybe new government regulations, maybe something, again, you can't, it's not something that you're able to fix. Physical depreciation, you can create, you can typically, you know, something needs to be fixed, you just pay to fix that. Functional obsolescence, again, we should know what that is. I think there's a question coming up, so I don't want to give too much answer here, but you can just build and change that.
Do you guys know how I would get the chat on my screen where I can see the questions, or do I have to flip back and forth?
So you should have the chat window on your screen while the PowerPoint is up.
It's not on my screen. Do you guys know how to do that real quick? Sorry.
Just click Alt-H. The Alt key and H together, it should pop up.
I'm not on a computer, I'm on my phone.
Oh.
Oh, so that won't show you. You'll have to flip back and forth if you're on your phone. You'll be able to see my screen, but then to answer the chat, you're gonna have to click.
That was the problem. Okay, sorry guys, go on.
All right, a 2-story house that has all the bedrooms upstairs and only 1 bathroom, and the only bathrooms on the first level is an example of. Yep, lots of right answers here. I actually Googled functional obsolescence and I found this amazing photo. So now you will always remember that toilet in the kitchen. I hope when you take the test, you think of that and how sanitary those meals must be. Yeah, I'm being sarcastic here. I'm glad, Susan, you're on my screen again, because you always laugh at my really bad jokes. So I just hope that you do not go down on the face screen. It helps. All right. So we know the difference here: economic obsolescence, an expensive home, and a development of less expensive homes. Physical obsolescence, wear and tear. Functional. Another one would be like, you know, having to go through one bedroom to get to another bedroom. Right? We remember all this from wherever we took the test. Market price is the amount for which a property So the market price, the market sets the price, meaning that it would have had to have sold. So market price is the sale price, what it's sold for. That's a very trick question for a lot of people. A lot of people think, okay, so the market price, this isn't, again, what it could sell, that's a real estate agent thinking, you know, speculating what that price could be on her listing appointment. Could sell, should sell, was sold is going to be the market price. They're synonymous. All right, congratulations. You finished valuation and market analysis. So you're going to write on your page. The next one we're going to do financing. So this is a big one. This is part of the big four. So make sure that you know what we're talking about here. Below line, remember that you finished your valuation and market analysis. Which of these is not a specific lien? Not a single wrong answer. I didn't want to jinx it. So again, just know what a specific lien means. It's got to be tied to a property. A mortgage loan clearly tied to a property. Income tax is not, but we'll keep looking. Real estate tax is tied to a property. Mechanics lien, obviously someone did work for that property. So I just have, I think the one that people most likely get confused are the real estate taxes. Those again are part of an actual property. Closing disclosures refer to so this is another very odd test thing I'm going to tell you guys. So if you really don't know the answer at all, then you can listen to this advice. If you have this is like really if you know nothing, but my high school students told me that usually the longest answer is the right answer. It's like a weird thing. So if you have no idea at all, none whatsoever, and there's a long answer, you can click it. But if you have some idea, don't just answer that. But in this case, it is true. So I do like to share that. How far in advance must the closing disclosures be shared with the client? Yep, you're all right. It's 3 days. I love to tell this quick little anecdote. So I just recently bought a house in probably the best sellers market we've had ever. I'm an idiot. So I bought a house and wanted to use some proceeds from another house to purchase this house. And of course, the closing disclosures, the lender was a bank and they didn't really care at all about getting it transferred on time. And they didn't give it 3 days prior. So we actually had to be delayed. Even though we knew everything, nothing changed. All she had to do was send it over. That whole 3 days thing, I will never forget 3 days. I had to pay to rent out the house so I could put new floors in because it didn't transfer in time. Don't use Huntington as your lender. I hate them. All right, what is usury? Awesome, all right answers. So I taught this class when we were back in person and someone told me that they had never seen this in one of their real estate classes, but got it right because they knew it from the Old Testament. I don't know if anyone's familiar, but apparently this was like a big thing in the Old Testament that they, at the time, I think obviously the Old Testament, the Jewish church was taking more money than allowed. And that is what usury is. So if you didn't know that word, there's a fun little thing, it's in the Bible. Charging an illegal rate or amount on the interest of a loan, and it's based on what the Fed sets it at, that how much higher that state could go. So that's how a lot of these like easy, like auto loan companies that you see, or that's how they're making their money. And this is probably gonna, I don't know if this is always gonna change or what, I just Googled it, but every state has their own law that's maximum permitted. Under TRID, lenders must. My high school students aren't staring us wrong again. It's the longest answer. Yep, everyone's getting this one right. So provide a loan estimate and closing disclosures. This is, does anyone know when this started? This hasn't always been around. Anyone know? So there's two parts of it, Rebecca. That there is, I think you're thinking of the next one I'm going to discuss, where I'm going to actually talk about the Big Short. But so TRID, Truth in Lending, and the RESPA together, it's the know before you owe law. So basically, this is kind of confounded by another law that we're gonna that brings up the consumer. Well, I don't want to give you the answer, but basically everything that was going on during the financial crisis, 2007, 2009, they had to figure out how that would never happen again. And that's what came out of the that crisis, the know before you owe. So which government agency administers TRID? Who's in charge of that? So after everything, so Rebecca, you were right, after everything kind of, you know, the poop hit the fan, all right, so I'm going to ignore everyone's answer right now, and I'm going to have you listen to me again. So this government agency was created after the financial crisis. So we're probably not going to have HUD. They've been around longer than that. There we go. So this is a tricky one. And this is when I get to get on my little pedestal and tell everyone to watch The Big Short. Has anyone seen that? Oh, Joseph, watch it again after you pass the test. I learn something new every time. It's fascinating.
Honestly, it sounds like it's going to be a good watch after I learn all this.
Yeah, because when I first watched it, I was like, well, that doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem right. And then you really understand how the financial sector works, and you're like, holy crap. I mean, this is wildly, yeah. So for those of you who haven't seen The Big Short or not really familiar with what was going on, so during the big housing boom, when everything was so great, the market was so high in 2005, 2006, the reason why is that a few things. One, the mortgage officers were basically in cahoots with the appraisers, and they would say, okay, make this appraised for more than what it's worth, and then I'll give you a kickback basically on the loan that I'm going to make, because I'm going to make all this extra money. So now they're actually not allowed to, the bank, the lender, this is one thing that also happened, the lender's not allowed to send the appraiser. They're not supposed to be working together in that sense, or they don't have a relationship. Obviously the bank needs to know before they lend. And then you'll know, another thing that was happening is they were actually giving loans out to like dogs and cats and dead grandpas and uncles to try to, again, make that money. And no one was checking on it. There was no one that they didn't have to send out the closing disclosures. They had no one that was actually checking in on them. And that's why the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was started, was to make sure that that wouldn't happen again. So keep in mind, a lot of these, there's always going to be context clues. So you think about it, TRID really didn't come about. TRID with RESPA, the whole piece did not come about until after that. So the Federal Housing Authority, the Consumer Protection Agency, I mean, these were a part of the alphabet soup of Roosevelt, right? So this is clearly not going to make sense for the time period that we're thinking about. Watch this movie, it's great. I'm going to watch it later. All right, a type of mortgage in which the lender makes periodic payments to the, this is a typo, to the owner to the age of 62 or older in the FHA program is called what? Yep, everyone's getting this correct. Yep, everyone's right answer. If you want another chart, I would do this as well, the types of mortgages, and understand when it's used, again, pros, cons. This would be a really nice chart to get that higher level understanding of each of the types of loans. And I've already given you the definitions. You just have to make a little chart out of that. One discount point is equal to, this is like a 10-second question.
Hey, Kate, can you
Yeah.
leave the screen up with the why it's the answer for just a little bit longer?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so again, all right answers. This is not likely to be a question. This might be the beginning of a math question. So it's gonna be one of those two parts where it says, you know, they got a loan, they paid for 3 discount points. How many did they pay? It might, you know, check if you understand it at that point, rather than something as simple as this. But again, everyone's getting that correct. 1% of the loan amount. All right, you finished financing. So just so we're clear, a lot of things you need to know: the laws, the different types of mortgages, the different types of loan. What else do we say? And then there's a lot of laws, financial laws, that you should just be aware of. All right. If you didn't get all those, again, write that down on your little page next to finances. And the next one we are going into, another big 4, real estate practice. So this is a big chunk of questions. A lot of these questions are also going to show up as part of the Ohio section as well, especially with like fair housing and such. A prestigious bank will only make loans to purchasers of properties located in ethnic neighborhoods if it is able to get a higher yield. Oh goodness. This is known as awesome. All right. So it looks like everyone got that one right. For what it's worth, only one of these deals with a bank. Only one deals with finances, and it's redlining. I actually took a class on, what was it? On one of these, like on the CE shop. And the woman who was teaching it said, I always think of red loaning. Red loaning is a good way to remember that that's the financing one. You need to know all of these. All right. So steering, again, only showing, this is real estate related, only showing properties in a certain neighborhood. Block busting, breaking up the block. So when you go to, you go to a neighborhood and you say, oh goodness, all of these terrible people are going to move in. You got to get out. Your property values are going to plummet. Block busting leads to panic selling. So these two are related. One's a noun, one's a verb. So I hope you guys are seeing all of these. Again, I am going to send this all to you, so you'll have it. I know sometimes definitions change based on what book or website or whatever you're looking at, so it's kind of nice to be able to get it more than once. All right, the Civil Rights Act of 1866 prohibits, it should say discrimination based on. Perfect, all right answers. All right, so there you go. Move this out of the way. Just know 1866 deals with race. no federal fair housing laws are violated if a landlord refuses to rent to. Yep, poor college kids. Age is not a protected class. We don't want to rent to them. All right, there's your chart. Remember this chart. This is real estate practice and Ohio law. A sales agent is advertising his firm's listed property in the local newspaper. The sales agent must make sure that so this law has is now known as the equal or greater prominence law. And the problem is no one is really following it. So as much of, we probably don't see it, it is still a law. The problem is social media and technology has just exponentially grown and the law has not moved as fast. So there's a lot of times where we're noticing that this isn't actually happening, which I think is why this is probably going to show up on your test, because they want to know the new people that are taking the test are going to follow the law. But it is amazing how many agents are actually not abiding by that. You do need to have your Howard Hanna logo front center, like the focal point. I always laugh because I always say I'm going to change this. I think Howard Hanna is the focal point here. My name's really big on that Facebook page. So again, I'm just selling myself out. I'm not sure if this would be illegal or not. I might have to ask, but I'm hoping that people see that Howard Hanna first. I see a chat, hold on. John, a real estate agent has been found guilty of violating the Federal Fair Housing Act for the third time. What would most likely occur? So I put a note to change the order of this because I'm going to give you guys some answer here to another one. But I want to point out how this works. All right, so 3 strikes, you're out. It's going to be revoked. But this is usually how this is going to happen. So if an agent violates a federal fair housing law for the first time, a few things could happen. Depending on how severe that violation is, they could just have to pay. They could have to take classes. It could be suspended. Depending on what it is, it could be pretty intense, or it could just be like, hey, pay some money and take a class and you're good. The second time, it's automatically going to be suspended. The first time, it might not be suspended depending on the severity. The second time, it's automatically going to be suspended, and then they're going to have to pay a fine. Think about it in just common sense. So the first time you get a warning, you got to take a class. The second time you just took the class, now you got to pay and you're suspended till you pay us back. The third time, okay, you've done this the one time you took the class. The second time you took a class, you were suspended, you had to pay. Third time, you're out. So just think about it and what makes sense here. It's the third time, they're not going to last. A broker's unlicensed secretary may while you guys are answering this, I saw a question. Is that the same process for other offenses? Not necessarily. So the one thing I will say is that the first offense can always be an ending of your career offense, depending on how severe it is. You know, if it's very much a case-by-case basis, but for the third strike, if it's something with fair housing, they won't tolerate it. You're definitely out. Yep, everyone's getting this one correct. Refer interested clients to the broker. It's amazing how many people are not doing this. If you are an unlicensed secretary and you're trying to fill out paperwork, or the team lead says you need to do this and that, tell them about whatever the negotiations, they're not able to do that, even if they're just an avenue for you to communicate that. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer asked broker Bob about the best way to take title to the property they had agreed to buy. What should Bob do? So if any of you have bought or sold a house, like your own house, you know that title, it's a contract, that's the deed, it's going to get recorded at the county. You need a lawyer to draft that. We are brokering the deal, but we're not doing anything with the title. A title agency has to do that for you. So usually when you have a deal, there's going to be, a mortgage loan officer. So you're going to have a lender that you're going to be in touch with, and a title company, a title officer. Howard Hanna has barristers. So barristers is our internal title company, which makes life a lot easier for you guys when you're done with the deal. You've got mortgage through Howard Hanna and barristers. That's why we say we're one-stop shopping. But we are not the lawyers. We just kind of handle everything in between until it gets to that point. What would not cause a real estate sales agent to lose her license? Oh, yes. I see. Not that I want to see a wrong answer, but I see a wrong answer, which means I get to share my really ridiculous way of remembering this. All right. So let me tell you about life as a high school teacher. We had a dress code. Didn't mean anything. All right. We had a dress code. No one followed it. Didn't matter. Nothing happened to them. They maybe got yelled at. It wasn't that serious. So I always think code of ethics, dress code, not a big deal. I think if I got hit by a cannon, I'd probably die. And that's how I know which one's more serious. So dress code, nothing, hit by a cannon, gonna die. What would not cause me to lose my license? The dress code, the code of ethics. And now when you take that test, you're gonna think of me getting hit by a cannon. You're gonna be like, okay, there you go. See, Melissa? I got these ridiculous ways. That's like my favorite thing to tell everyone, because I think of this like someone on like a plank and like a cartoon pirate, and then they get hit and then they fall, and there you go. All right. Well, then if you got one thing out of this, it's I'm getting hit by a cannon. There you go. All brokers agreeing to charge a standard commission for residential sales throughout a market area is all right, perfect. So just the history teacher in me is going to tell you, Sherman Antitrust Act is by far the largest anti-monopoly type of legislation we've ever passed. So if you ever see something about some monopoly type of situation and Sherman Antitrust is an answer, it's probably the right one. Also, I want to point out to everyone, so these links that are on here, when I'm going to save this as a PDF and then send it to you all, these will actually be clickable links. So the last slide, I'll put my website in there, my email and stuff. So when you download that and open it, you'll be able to just click through and do what you got to do. Oh, Oh, okay, we finished real estate practice. Good work, everyone. So a lot of fair housing, knowing how to lose your license, what you're allowed to do, what your licensed agent's allowed to do. Advertising was included in there. So a lot of things in real estate practice. The next section we're going to do, land use and control. So I think we're going to have 1 or 2 questions. I don't know if this should be land use and control though. This doesn't feel like it's a land use and control question. And it does look like it's the same color, doesn't it? It's the same color. So I think we still have 1 more real estate practice. I'm not sure this is land use. Doesn't really make sense to be land use. All right, the superior lien. I hate this question. If you've taken this class with me before, you know that I hate this question. I got it wrong the first time I took it. So these aren't actually my questions. They're from a question bank. But it looks like everyone did get this right. So yeah, real estate taxes is the superior lien. In order, does everyone know how this would go? So I always think that your IRS, that the federal taxes would be 1. That's what I got wrong. So I'm going to tell you all right now. It goes D is 1. Then the federal tax lien, the IRS taxes, that's 2. Then your first mortgage is 3. And then mechanics lien is 4. So that's the order here. And I guess it makes sense if you think about it. So obviously the county wants their taxes, then we're going to go federal government, then a private bank. They're obviously not going to trump the first 2. And then some guy who did work on your house is the least important, unfortunately for him. I hope you guys are appreciating all of my Bitmojis. I had to send them to myself and then upload them in here. This is very difficult work. All right. Yeah, guys, I'm pretty sure this was supposed to be real estate practice as well. I apologize about that. Contracts. So here we are. We're on the next big section, the biggest part of your test. So if you're falling asleep, do some jumping jacks, go get some coffee, game time. In an option contract, which of the following is true? All right, let's think about this logically. If a seller agrees to an option contract, they're putting their house, they're putting their house on the market, like you come with this price, like these are the terms. They're already agreeing to that one side of the contract. So you can force that seller to sell their house, right? If you're agreeing to the option, you can't force the buyer to buy. All right, you can if the seller is agreeing to this unilateral contract, well, they've already signed that. The buyer, you can't make the buyer buy that house. You might be able to sue for some funds, money, if it, take it off the market, whatever, but you don't actually, you can't force that buyer to buy your house. What did everyone ask? What did everyone say? Okay, you want another chart? Types of contracts. All right, there's another chart for you to create. And that might help you know the differences between a lot of these. All right, a second offer received on a property prior to the seller's decision on the first should be Yep, no matter what, you have to submit that, no matter what, unless you have a client that says, I don't even want to see an offer if it's, you know, under this price. Even then, I would have them put that in writing, just cover your butt. You have to, anytime there's an offer, you have to submit it. So right now, this was kind of a bit of an issue. I shouldn't say right now, in the spring market, which was delayed because of COVID. So really this summer, things were in multiples left and right. The inventory was so low. Everyone was getting multiple offers on their house. If you have more than one offer, if you're ever in this business when it's this crazy, we actually have an Excel sheet that makes life much easier for them to understand each offer. So this counts as submitting it. If you're saying, okay, here are the different terms, you put this in a very easy to understand way for your client, but you do have to submit it. Even if one offer is 50,000 less than the other, maybe they're not asking for an inspection. Maybe they're going to do an appraisal bridge because they're offering more than, I don't know. Well, I guess that wouldn't make sense if they were doing 50 less, but I mean, maybe the dates work. All right. So you always just, you're not there to help them pick, even if they say, just tell me what the best one is. You do need to discuss that with them. Mrs. Smith wants to buy Mrs. Jones' house and assume the 6% mortgage. To be released from the debt, Miss Jones should Yep. Key word in letter B would be novation. So when I said I would make a chart of the different types of contracts, you would do assignment, novation, assumption, I guess it's more mortgage, but option, just write them all out and do different scenarios of those. But yep, almost everyone got that right. It is B. So here you go, novation, assumption, assignment, and then you could add option to that and make a fun chart again. By the time we're done with this class, you're never going to want to make a chart again in your life. A valid contract, valid, I'm going to give you a huge hint before you all answer. Valid does not mean enforceable. Does Ohio accept verbal contracts? Yes, Joseph, I just saw you shake. Yep, we totally do. So a valid contract just is offer and acceptance. It has nothing to do with writing and signed. Yeah. All right, so everyone got that one. So again, valid being offer and acceptance does not mean enforceable. If you want to enforce a contract, I would say you can try a verbal agreement, but I would say in writing is going to hold up a lot better in court. I don't know if this is ever going to come up, but anyone want to give me an example? When would you have, like, what's the most common verbal contract in real estate? Probably happens daily. Buyer agency. So we have an exclusive buyer agreement, but how many agents go out there and show a house to a potential buyer with just like a verbal understanding, like, oh yeah, I'll work with you. But that buyer can then go call another agent to see another house, call another agent to see another house. There's nothing in writing at that point. So showing a home is probably the most common verbal agreement that if you're trying to get funds for a house that you showed from a client, if you don't have that buyer agency agreement, it could be hard to get that. At what point must earnest money be deposited into the broker's trust account? We're going to see if everyone listened to me. Don't answer this one too quick. So if you just did our regular contract, usually it would be the last page on page 6. You sign, the agent signs that they received the earnest money. You don't want to sign that till you actually have the earnest money, and you don't want to take the earnest money. I guess you could right away if it's a seller's market, but maybe you don't want to take that until there's acceptance. So again, according to the terms of the contract, I'm my millennial self. A lot of my friends don't have checkbooks, so I can't just have them write checks if they're not going to get the house. So I'll probably say earnest money upon acceptance, meaning that it could change because that's my contract. Someone else could say immediately. Someone else could say, after the inspection. It's always according to the terms of the contract. There's no law regarding earnest money in Ohio that you have to follow. What if you didn't even want earnest money? You don't have to do earnest money. Maybe you're just going to do the whole down payment is going to be all cash and you don't want to do earnest money. Again, according to the terms of the contract. When a contract of sale includes a due diligence contingency for the buyer's inspection. I love this question. What's contingent mean? If a property is contingent, there's usually 3 things a property could be contingent on. So contingent and pending are very different. This is what I think people get confused about. So there could be more, but typically there's 3 things that can make a property contingent. Contingent means everything's in, we've agreed on something, but there's something that it's contingent, it's not going to pass or it's not going to sell unless something happens. So contingency on financing is probably the most common. We're going to sell as long as they get financing, as long as the inspection is okay, as long as it appraises at the right price. So a contingent means if this happens, then it will sell. Pending means all of it's happened. There's no more contingencies. All the ifs happen. We're just waiting for the paperwork to go through. So if you see something's contingent, whatever has the if is probably the right answer. So again, it's contingent on the financing. If I don't like that inspection, or excuse me, it's contingent in this case on the inspection. If I don't like it, I can walk away, or I could say do all of this, but they don't have to. That's what makes it contingent. A buyer is going to make an offer on a seller's home. The listing agent asks the buyer for $1,000 in earnest money. The buyer does not want to give $1,000 in earnest money, but the listing agent says it's state law. You are all getting this one correct. And so would my high school kids. Awesome, all correct. Yep, those high school kids, they're going to get 3 answers, right? Because it's, again, the longest answer is the correct one. Oop. I like to show people what page 1 of our contracts looks like here. So earnest money, you can leave this blank. You could say 0. You could put upon acceptance, all of the good stuff. This is just a regular blank you fill in. Nothing's required. The property condition inspection was permitted by a contingency clause for the purchase of contract and sale. The inspection report indicates that multiple repairs are needed and the buyer doesn't want to purchase a property. Which of the following is true? Good one, Joseph. So yes, there are 2 ifs. So I've steered you wrong. All right, the buyer may get a refund of earnest money if the repairs costs exceed the limit stated in the contract. The buyer must proceed with the purchase if the seller promises to pay all the repairs. Are we ever going to force a buyer to buy a house? We might get money from them, but we're never going to say, okay, you have to buy this house, you have to move in. You have to. No, they don't have to do that. So in this case, and it's really funny, there's a lot of unethical agents out there that will probably say, just let's put, we want to win this deal. Let's just get the earnest money. Let's do the best we can. And if you need to, you can get out of it at the inspection. That's not illegal. That's very unethical. And if you can prove it, you're probably going to get in a lot of trouble with the commission. But again, if they say, I don't want to add 3-prong outlets to the kitchen or the bathroom, I'm walking away. Even if the seller says, well, I'm going to do this and that, and I'm going to make it happen. Again, you can't tell that buyer, oh, you got to move. You have to. We're going to do everything you ask for. Maybe they just got cold feet and they don't want to. But if they have a reason for it from the inspection, they should be able to get their earnest money back. This is the removal of contingency. So usually there's going to be 3 inspections that you, or I guess 4, depending on where you live. But the general home inspection, again, you would put once it's removed, once you're taking away the contingency, everyone signs this and then it becomes pending. If there's a problem, you would check this, removed based, and then underneath you'd say adding 3-prong outlets or grounded out GFCI in all bathrooms and kitchens, getting rid of water damage and tuck pointing on stairs. And then this would be that contingency that once it was removed, again, we'd go pending.
Kate, can you go back to that, the question? I have a question about option A. How do we know that earnest money was deposited? Is that like that they're talking about?
You would just make the assumption in this question.
Okay.
Yeah. So in this case, if we're confused about this, so like for C, this could not, you can never take that earnest money and put it anywhere else. That's state law. So just so this could come up in another question. Actually, I know it does. So I'm giving you the answer. But you can't ever take the earnest money and put it towards something other than earnest money. It goes into a broker trust account. It's not getting removed. So I'm automatically going to get rid of C. The commission, they haven't even gotten the commission yet. You cannot, this just isn't realistic. So I'm going to get rid of C and D. In this case, I know that a buyer is not going to be forced to purchase a house. That's one where maybe if it does seem like, oh, I'm just assuming they have earnest money, just get rid of the question. The answer is, it's not. I don't know where I am again. A buyer makes an offer to purchase a house and gives the seller until midnight 3 days hence to accept the offer. Prior to acceptance, the buyer withdraws the offer. What is true? Okay, everyone's getting this right, but I do have to tell a fun story. I think the anecdotes kind of help people remember. So 2017, I had a client who wanted to buy a townhome on Case Western Reserve's campus. And she ended up finding one of those on Chester. I don't know if anyone's familiar with downtown, but one of those new townhomes on Chester. She got it from a doctor. And we put in the offer. We had verbal agreement, again, verbal, not written. And everyone was under, all excited. But it was a doctor who just was delayed in signing his contract. We never got it back. Well, we didn't get it back for 2 days. And my client's like getting excited. She wants to go down there. So she goes down and she just walks around the little townhome. She's looking at all the houses. She actually sees a bullet from a gun in the stair of the townhome, of one of the townhomes. And she panics, naturally so, right? She panics and she's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Well, she calls and she says, I want to withdraw the offer right now. I'm sending you an email. Like, I don't feel safe. She's a single woman. She's like, I don't feel safe. I'm writing you an email. It's in writing. And sure enough, we sent that over. If that doctor had signed the second he got it, he would have been stuck. I mean, we had an offer at that point, walking away. We probably could have gotten some earnest money back, but it would not have been, there would have been a mutual release that we needed to sign. We would have to get everyone else involved, all the different parties. But because he didn't, or even if he signed and we didn't get it back, if there was not that communication of that signed agreement sent back to us, we could have walked away at any point. So when you get your license and you're in the middle of a deal, that's why virtual signing is so important right now, because people can do it right on their phone right away. It makes life a lot easier. You don't want to lose out on those deals. We did find another property. Everything was fine. She didn't get that house. I'm sure it sold to someone else, but I always think about that when I see that question. Which of the following would not be a contingency clause in a sales contract? So contingent on come on, people. Contingency. If this, then that. So if something is contingent, if there's something that needs to happen before it sells, there we go, there we go. See, you just need me like chirping in your ear when you take the test. So the settlement, granted, this is a very much extended close. Typically, we'd say, 30 days, 45 days, 60 days. The title transfer in 90 days, that's a long time. Maybe that's what's throwing people off, but that's the date in the contract. That's not an if. The seller can cancel financing if the buyer cannot get suitable, or cancel the deal if the buyer can't get suitable financing. That's a financing contingency. This sounds funny, Aunt Minnie, right, isn't giving him the down payment, but that's a financing contingency. We're putting Aunt Minnie involved now. She might be in the contract, but again, that's another contingency. And then this one would clearly be if infested with termites, that's going to be an inspection contingency. So contingency, if this all clears, then we're going to go to pending. Contingency is the if. It's not sold yet. A lot of people actually will show a property that is contingent because they know there's something that could go wrong. I can't tell you how many properties this summer were contingent and then went back to active. And I think a lot of it, not that anyone probably cares, but I think it helps sometimes. I think a lot of what happened this summer is that people were putting they were in multiple offers. So let's say that a house was listed at 150 and they knew they were in multiple, so they decided to offer 175. But then, so that's 25,000 over asking, and then it gets appraised at 160. So the bank now is only going to send them a loan, right? We know what happened because of TRID. The bank's only going to loan up to 160. So they have to do an appraisal bridge, which means they have to bring the difference from the 175 they offered to the 160 in cash. That's a lot of money to bring in cash. And maybe they don't want to pay for something if they don't know what it's worth. So that contingent property immediately went back to active because they walked away knowing that I'm not going to pay. If it appraises, then I'll buy it. But if it doesn't, I'm walking away. That's it. That was a huge contingency this summer. Does everyone understand the difference between contingent and pending? I feel like I'm talking very fast. Okay. Someone's going to say you are. Can I just take the test for you? I think about that all the time. I kind of want to go back and take it and see if I would pass, because honestly, there's so much that you need to know for the test that really doesn't matter when you practice real estate. I know that doesn't sound very fun now that you're about to take the test, but a lot of this stuff, if you have a question, when you're a real estate agent, you're going to look it up. I mean, some of this stuff, I just think it's so silly. All right, which of the following actions taken by a broker would be in violation of law? I'm seeing a lot of correct answers. All right, so yes, commingling answers D. Everyone knows the difference between commingling and conversion. Is this right? Did I do this right? Commingling it is mixing. Conversion is when you're actually just converting it to your own funds, your own account. And then you can look at this goofy guy and click this link when I send it to you. A salesperson listed a home for sale and then changes brokerage firms. What happens to the listing? Okay, all good. Also, everyone's getting this one correct. So you are actually not allowed to hold listings as a salesperson. You work for Howard Hanna. Howard Hanna is the brokerage that has the listing. So if you leave Howard Hanna, that listing agreement was signed with Howard Hanna, not you. You were representing Howard Hanna in the agreement. So if you leave, Howard Hanna gets the listing. I'll tell you, a lot of times, if we've got someone that we think might be wanting to leave our company because they're very silly and totally wrong in their decision, if we notice that they're getting rid of all of their listings, we're going to stay on top of that and say, okay, wait, something might be up, because a lot of times they don't want to take a new listing if they're going to leave because they know Howard Hanna gets to keep it. So there's a question I'm gonna tell you the answer to now because I'm thinking about it. But what would happen if, what if like Hobie Hanna passes away? What if our broker passes away? What happens to those listings? What's the best scenario for the broker? Anyone know? So a lot of these large brokerages tend to have more than one broker in the company, right? They're going to have a broker depending on the region, maybe the area. So all of the Hannas are brokers. So if Howard Hanna, who by the way is 100 this year, his birthday's in I think February, he's 100 years, like the Howard Hanna is still alive. If he passes and all the other Hannas have their brokerage license, so that would still stay with Howard Hanna. It would just be transferred under one of their names with brokerage. So that's the best way to handle it. In case of breach of contract, a party may enforce specific performance. What is specific performance? Okay, so it's not going to be all of the above. It's going to be one of those lawsuits. So what just makes sense? So specific performance, if you want to ensure that something happens, you're suing for specific performance. You want to sue to make sure that whatever you've agreed upon, that they perform, that they're going to do whatever was agreed upon. So in this case, the high school students are incorrect. It is not the longest answer. It is C. And again, we're not going to force a buyer to do something. We're not going to force a buyer to buy. We can force that seller to sell. So in this case, you can sue, if you wanted to sue a buyer, you might be able to get money, but you're not going to sue specific, you're not going to file for specific performance of a buyer. Good job on contracts. I think we finished the big three. The only one left we have is calculations. So just so everyone remembers what we were talking about, contingency clauses, when to withdraw, earnest money was included in that. Again, contingency, earnest money, different types of offer, different types of contracts, assignment, novation, assumption, option, unilateral contracts. Remember all of that. How did we do on contracts? Good? Yes, pending is absolutely closer to purchasing than contingent. So if you see a property that's pending, don't show it. There's no point. In fact, they probably wouldn't even let you. That just means, you know, they're just waiting to get to the date. If it's contingent, there's something still left that could go wrong. You know, actually, that's a great question too, because a lot of agents will put something as pending when it's contingent because they want their stats to look better. I'm giving you all these examples of bad agents. They want their stats to look better, that they can go pending so quick. So you might see sometimes something's pending, but it actually goes back to active. When you get your license and it's a busy market like this, you could always, like, I mean, there were a few times where I called an agent and I said, hey, it's pending. Is it, I noticed it's pending in the MLS. Is it really pending, or like, are you almost there? They shouldn't be doing that, but sometimes they do, because they want their days on market to look better. They're lying. I would never do that. Property ownership. Talk about a chart. Another easy chart for you all. All right, Mrs. Jones, we all read this one. Mrs. Jones died, left his will to Mrs. Jones the right to use, occupy, and enjoy until her death. At that time, the real estate is to become the property of their son, Willis. Mrs. Jones has what? Oh, goodness. All right answers. Yes, a life tenant. Here's the beginning of your chart. You want to put all of these together on types of ownership. So this is probably the biggest difference I'm going to tell you all. This is how I remembered it. So joint tenancy, there's equal right of survivorship. All right. So joint tenancy is going to be better. This is the differences between joint and tenant in common. That's usually people's biggest mistake. So equal right of survivorship and joint tenancy, that's the better one for people if you're looking for types of ownership. Or more control. Tenants in common, if you're a tenant in common, I could actually sell, convey, do whatever with my mortgage without the consent of the other one. So tenant in common is less control for you than joint tenancy. I hope that helps. Mr. Jones died, his blah, 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 blah. We just read all this. What's their son? Yeah, everyone's getting this one right. All right, remainder man. That's how I think of it. They're going forward to someone else. Did I read the correct question? Because there's another one, and I think on my page, did everyone get this one right? Mrs. Jones is a life tenant. Okay. There's three of these. That's why I thought I read the wrong one on mine. So their son Willis, yes, we all got this one right. It's A. I'm going to give you one other tip. that I just saw, because now I'm on the right slide on my page. It's almost always going to be tenant in common for the answer unless you see survivorship. When it's asking about the types of joint tenancy or tenants in common, if you see survivorship, it's going to be joint tenancy. If you don't, it's tenant in common. And then obviously in this one, Mr. Jones left the will to Mrs. Jones, right to use, occupy, enjoy. So what is he giving? He's giving her, he's giving her a lot more power here and use. So there's no joint tenancy with Willis. He's the remainder man. So if you don't know, if you're confused on this one, if you didn't know the answer, read the question and think, what can I get rid of? Willis doesn't have any of this ownership until after she passes. So joint tenancy and tenant in common does not make sense. There we go. So I think from what I can tell is a lot of you guys, you might be answering too quick, and that could definitely be my fault because I've moved kind of quick. Take your time when you take this test, read the question and think about, okay, what is it really asking? Because so many of you are getting it correct when I just direct you, like, why is Willis at all in part of this ownership? We just answered a question that he wasn't. Right? So don't fake yourself out. I mean, I think that's part of the hardest part of this test is that we think, okay, we read the question so quick, we compartmentalize different pieces and parts of it. Don't do that. Think about it. Okay, well, wait, Willis is a remainder to the estate, so he's not going to be in joint tenancy or tenant in common. Are we understanding that? There were a lot of wrong answers. Okay. And then I have this very 80s graphic to help you with the remainder man process. Look at that, we finished. Wait, did we? No, we're still on property ownership. I lied. Dower rights are very old school, and there's only 3 states that have them. Ohio being one. I think Kentucky and maybe like Alabama. What are dower states? I'm gonna look this up. All right, so everyone know what dower is? I swear I read that there were dower in like 3 states, and Ohio was one, Kentucky, and I forget the last one. All right, so what did we all say? What did we put as our answers? Am I on the right? So dower, okay, I was like, there's one right answer. So this is one where I think people just need to know the definition. All right, so dower is saying that you get part of the right to the property after the owner passes.
Can you go back to the question so we can see the options again?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I thought one was for a husband and one was for a wife. Which one is which?
So, okay, so you're probably thinking, so in this case, it's going to be for both. So initially dower was like very dated, and it was just that the husband owned the property, and then if he passes the, or excuse me, like the husband could take control of the wife's property, and that's what they're getting rid of.
Okay.
I think that's probably how they were teaching it to you guys, is like the very old school way.
I just thought there was one word for a wife and there was one word for a husband.
Oh, I don't know. Does anyone else know that?
Yes, I
Okay.
remember that too. I just don't remember what the word is.
Dower
But it's
and,
still dower rights, regardless of what the word would be, right? I mean, it's still the law of dower rights. No?
okay, got it.
Thanks, Susan. I'm not even gonna, how do you even pronounce that?
Dowager.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad I was like, dowager is the female. Thank you. I have to like write that down, how to pronounce it in my page so I don't mess that up again. The highest and best form of ownership interest in real estate is called. Very easy question. Yep. This is another one. I'd make a chart. I'd make a chart of the different types of ownership. I think that would be very helpful for you all. Here are the definitions. If that helps, I would put them in a nice chart. Again, I like charts. You've been given revocable permission to hunt on your neighbor's land. You have a whenever you have permission to do something, keyword being permission. If you have permission to drive a car, what do you have? Don't overthink it, guys. Yep, you have permission to drive a car, you have a license. You have permission to shoot, you got a hunting license. Answer is B. Which of the following terms would include the interests, benefits, and rights inherent in the ownership of real estate? Should be a pretty easy one. What comes with a bundle of rights? Yep, everyone's getting this one right. Real property. No one seems to own the vacant land next to Mary's house, so she used it for pasture for many years. She may have a good chance of obtaining ownership by so one of those is government related and one is private. If you're on some land for a really long time, no one's bothering you, you basically have taken care of it, you do everything you need to, eventually they're going to say, okay, fine, it's yours, and that's adverse possession. So the state will just say, okay, it's basically yours by default, no one else is doing anything with it. Which would be considered an encumbrance, but not a lien. Awesome. So every lien is an encumbrance, but not every encumbrance is a lien, right? Every lien is an encumbrance, but not every encumbrance is a lien. Easements are encumbrances. They're not money related. So only one of, oh, so I just gave you guys all the answers. So obviously one of these is not dealing with money, and that's an easement. There you go. So we're definitely way past when we were supposed to have a break. I don't know if people are getting up and eating or doing what they need to do. Do you want me to keep going, or do you want to take a couple minutes, or how are we doing with everyone's focus? I'm going to keep going unless I hear otherwise. I'm looking at everyone's face on the screen and you guys look thrilled to be here. Okay. There we go. Some people smiled. I know this isn't very fun for me either. I'm trying to make us all enjoy it a little bit more. All right, leasing and property management. We're flying through. What type of lease did you sign? Oh, all my things are in my way. If you must pay 30% of the landlord's expenses. So if you know vocab, you know that a percentage lease isn't really a thing. So don't put that on there just because it says 30%. We know our vocab words. See, you're gonna know your vocab, you're gonna be like, okay, but granted, there's leasing and property management isn't a lot of test questions. So if you got it wrong, it's not the worst thing in the world. There we go, everyone's getting that correct. If you wanted to make a chart on types of leases, there you go, land, gross, net. Oh, answer is C. There you go, there was your one question, look at that. All right, agency, this is a huge chunk, so be prepared. A single agent relationship provides a blank with a seller. Good, we're starting easy. So just so everyone knows, another fun thing here, sub-agency isn't really a thing anymore. It doesn't exactly exist since we created buyer agency. Sub-agency used to be if you were looking to buy a house and you didn't have a buyer's agent, we didn't really have buyer's agents, you would actually work with the listing agent of that property, and that would be sub-agency. Not really a thing, obviously, because now we have buyer agency, so usually not the right answer. A salesperson may accept compensation from awesome. So everyone's getting this right. Even if you work with a co-broke, the co-broke pays Howard Hanna, and Howard Hanna, so co-broke being like Remax, Keller, Caldwell, a different brokerage, they would pay Howard Hanna, and then Howard Hanna pays you. Another great Bitmoji. If given a choice, what type of listing agreement would a seller probably prefer? Think about this. Would a seller, not an agent, a seller, okay, so I don't think a gross listing is a thing. So I'm definitely gonna is a gross listing a thing? I've never heard of that. So I'm pretty sure this is something we're just gonna get rid of. Net listings is basically illegal. Does anyone know what a net listing is? I'm gonna say, hey, Susan, if you sell my house, whatever's over 150,000, you can keep. Does that have Susan thinking out for my best interest? Absolutely not. That has Susan saying, I'm gonna list this house at 500,000 and I'm gonna make a pretty penny on it. All right, that's not allowed. Exclusive right to sell means that no matter who sells my house, Susan is gonna get paid. Whether it's a co-broke, whether I sell it to my neighbor, it doesn't matter. She has it's exclusivity, she's getting paid. Exclusive agency means, okay, I'm gonna work as her listing agent. I'm gonna do a lot of work for her. I'm gonna market it. I'm gonna do some open houses. But if the seller, the owner brings their own buyer, Susan's not getting paid. So what would a seller obviously wants Susan to do all the work, but not have to pay her. Thank you, Susan. Susan would list my $150,000 house for $1 million. Good luck. I hope that the little stories aren't confusing. It's supposed to help. So when you take the test and you're thinking about exclusive agency and exclusive right to sell, you're going to think, oh, Kate was selling her house to Susan, and Susan, you know, wanted exclusive right to sell because she wanted money. Exclusive agency, Kate makes the money. If you guys, when you pass the test, you're gonna take Fast Start, and I actually teach the agency class. So I could tell a story on every one of these slides. I won't, but I could if you've got questions. A real estate broker is engaged by the owner with a listing. The broker is a blank agent. So real estate agents are special agents. Right? We are very good at one thing, it's real estate. A general agent would be a property manager because they have a lot of things under their umbrella of property management. And that's really just one you just got to kind of know. When must a buyer's agent give an agency disclosure statement to the seller? Another one of my favorite questions. The agency disclosure statement. I'm going to pretend I'm not looking at any of those answers because it's not that. This is why I love this question, because I get to like explain it. Not B either. We could keep going. It's not A or B. There we go. I see one right answer. I think everyone's just going to be like, okay, I'll try C now. I'll try D. All right. The biggest mistake that even agents today make is understanding the difference between the agency disclosure and the consumer guide to agency. The consumer guide to agency, every single broker has, and no matter what, you have to give it to a buyer. If you show them a property, if you a listing appointment, that just gives them notice of how agency works in Ohio. It's gonna say, okay, we allow dual agency, we have split agency, whatever, all right? That's the consumer guide. An agency disclosure is transaction specific, meaning, so Susan's gonna be my agent this entire day. So that means Susan's selling my house to Amy and Joseph, all right? Joseph is another agent. It's gonna actually say, Susan represents Kate LeSueur, the buyer, in the purchase of Joseph's home, where Amy is the listing agent. And if that deal goes through, perfect. If not, I have to sign another agency disclosure for the next house I put an offer on with Susan. It just explains who the agency relationship is. This is what it looks like. This is not a Howard Hanna form. This is a state form. And it would say, okay, the buyer is represented by blank, the seller is represented by blank. Maybe it's two agents in the same brokerage. Maybe it's only one agent who's a dual agent. So with Howard Hanna's market share, you're going to fill this one out a lot. But you'll notice it has a buyer, a seller, and a property address. This is the agency disclosure. Agency disclosure, transaction specific with the contract. A broker offers a seller a free trip to Hawaii in return for a property listing. What is true? Your clue here is look at the who. Who is involved in this little deal to Hawaii? There are two people involved who are having this agreement. Who are they? I love teaching agency. This is so fun. I'm having so much fun. All right, who's involved? Who are the two people involved? The broker and the seller, right? So we have a listing agent and we have a seller. Who's not involved? The buyer. There's no purchase agreement here. There's no sales contract. So I'm automatically getting rid of A and B. Automatically, not even gonna look at it. All right. Oh, the buyer's down here again. The buyer doesn't need to know at all. This is only on the listing agreement. People are like, how is this allowed? Why is this possible? It happens every day with commission, right? An inducement to get a listing. Hey, choose me, not Susan, to sell your house. I'll cut my commission in half. Maybe I'm not going to send you to Hawaii, but that's an inducement. You put that on the listing agreement. The buyer does not need to know. I wish the buyer could know, because then we'd know how all these people are getting all these listings. A sales agent in his advertisements, or I guess advertises that he will provide a free room addition to anyone who buys one of his listings. What is true? Another typo there. Look at you guys. All right. You listened. Oh, lots of people listened, but not everyone's, which is fine. We're going to go over it again. So a sales agent states in his advertisement, a free room to someone who buys his listing. Who's the who? You have a sales agent and you have a purchaser. You have a buyer. All right. So first off, do we think this is legal or unethical? Do we think it's A or B, or do we think it's part of the legal part or the unethical part? Yeah, it's legal. Almost everything's legal for whatever reason, as long as you tell us about it. If it's agreed upon, it's usually legal. So it's either going to be A or B. Is this an inducement between the buyer and the seller? The sales contract of the sales agent and the buyer. People, again, when does this happen? I will tell you. This happened to me. My mom actually was going to kill me because I told a buyer on one of her listings that there was a power garage, and there wasn't. And I will never live this one down. So she filled out the contract. She was going to walk away from the deal because there was no electric in the garage. The agent, my mom, sorry, Mom, actually paid out of pocket to put electric in the garage to keep the deal together because she was under the impression there was electric. And yes, that was like 5 years ago, and my mom still talks about it. So it happens. An inducement is anything that's going to convince the person to buy or sell. It's basically like what's the word? You're kind of like
Coercing people.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly the word I was thinking in my head. Except that sounds more violent. It's like an inducement. A lesser version of coercion.
Okay.
When stating the seller's listing price and terms to a prospective buyer, the seller's broker can disclose Perfect. This question needs no explanation. Everyone's getting that one right. The rate of commission for residential properties is set by, pretty much gave you this answer earlier. And you guys listened. This is so validating when you get it right after I gave you the answer. Awesome. Yep, so Howard Hanna obviously has a set commission that we put in our contract that we hope you just sign and go with. But the seller obviously can negotiate that. A group of brokers in small town USA agree to pool their listings. The selling broker will share the commission with the listing broker. This is known as, don't overthink it. So let's think about this. A selling broker, Howard Hanna, agrees to give a commission to another broker that sells a property. Howard Hanna is going to give money to Keller Williams if they sell our listing. How did Keller Williams even know we had the listing? What did they look at? We all put it, there it is. Yep, the MLS. This sounds, maybe it's the way it's worded. Again, not my question, but read it, check it out. Remember, we're all sharing with one another. Otherwise, you know, people aren't, you're only allowed to see Howard Hanna if we didn't share our listing information. The MLS, all right, the multiple listing service. And we're part of Yes MLS. A listing agent offers a seller an inducement to lower the sales price and accept an offer of the purchase contract. What is true? Okay, a lot of right answers, which is great. This is the trickiest one of all of our agency questions. So the correct answer is D. But I want the people that didn't think it was D to read that again, now that you know the correct answer, and see if you figure out why. Yes, there's a purchase contract involved, but they're actually telling them to accept it. They're not actually talking to the buyer. They're not convincing the buyer to do anything. They're saying, hey, you know, we're not going to get a better deal than this. Accept this offer. Let me take you to dinner at your favorite place if you accept this offer. This probably happens more than you ever know. Correct. Has nothing really to do with the buyer. It's to sell that property. So just read through it again, take your time. Yes, there's a purchase contract, but they're doing this. The people that are actually involved are the listing agent and the seller. This was the trickiest of all of the agencies. But I hope now that you took the time to read it, you get it. When can a broker reveal confidential information about a client? Take your time reading this question. I have one of those ergonomic like ball chairs, and every couple seconds it just rolls behind me and then I like fall on it. So I'm sorry, I'm moving all over the place. Perfect, everyone got it right, under subpoena. Hopefully you never are in one of those situations where you have like a divorced couple, although that typically is 2 buying, that's 3 transactions, that's a listing and 2 buying. But sometimes not that pretty, and you don't want to have to be part of any type of divorce proceedings. X lists a property, Z finds a buyer. Is X allowed to write an offer as the buyer's representative? So I'm seeing a lot of right answers. I'm not sure if it's from the last question because it was up. There we go. All right. Yep. Again, as long as people agree to things in writing, it's usually okay. Oh, my phone is typing everything that I just said. My tenant who does not have hot air right now for some reason. Okay. So again, as long as it's in writing, this is the bottom of that state agency disclosure page. Disclose dual agency, no problem, as long as they both agree that they're working with a dual agent. The back of this page explains how dual agency works. If home is listed for sale and shown by 4 cooperating brokers, how many relationships are formed? There we go. Yep, A is correct. Just because you're showing it, there's no, so not necessarily Joseph. So basically, right now, if people are showing the property, think about that buyer agency. There's no agency necessarily unless it says they have buyer agency. The listing agreement, actually great question. So there's going to be 3 things that establish agency. You should all write this down or know this, all right? What establishes agency? The first thing is the listing agreement. The listing agreement establishes agency. You are the fiduciary to the seller. Exclusive buyer agency, which is very rarely signed. Exclusive buyer agency is another form that will establish agency with you as the buyer's agent. And then the last one that we just went over that's going to establish agency, it's shared with both parties, is what? It's transaction specific. It starts with agency and it ends with disclosure. Agency disclosure. No one thought that joke was funny? I'm getting tired. I guess not. I'll work on it. A sales agent is acting as a dual agent. The buyer asks the sales agent how much to offer for the listing. The sales agent should. Perfect, all correct answers. I'm gonna tell you one thing about agency that I think could show up on the test that's been a huge issue these days is team agency. So when I worked for my mom before I was part of the education team, everything went under her name in the MLS. It was always under Kathy LeSueur. If I took a buyer, it would still be under Kathy LeSueur. So even if I never met the seller of a property that I might have been writing an offer on, agency follows the team. So let's say that Susan, Joseph, and I are all on a team together. We're on like the sold team. And I list my friend's house and Joseph ends up selling it. Joseph cannot give advice to the person, to his buyer. Even if he's never met my client, he has never been in that house before in my listing, we are as a team, agency follows the team. So even if you are, oh, I'm a buyer's agent for the sold team, doesn't matter. The team, agency follows the team. And that's been a huge issue these days. So I could see that showing up as one of the test questions. Broker Barb listed Tony's house and subsequently showed it to her sister who made an offer to purchase. What is Barb's responsibility of disclosure? Yep, all correct. She must disclose her family relationship. If she just shows the property, she does not have to, but if she puts an offer in, she has to. If she's a landlord, she has to. So I'm actually, I own a rental property and I have to put on everything that when I market for a new tenant, I have to put licensed agent in the state of Ohio, licensed agent in the state of Ohio on everything. A fiduciary must act in the best interest of, 10-second question. Yeah, we all got that right. That's just a nice, easy one since we've been working so hard. Before acting in a dual agency capacity, the brokerage must obtain the approval to represent both parties to the transaction by obtaining both client signatures on the agency disclosure statement. What must be included on that form? Yep, everyone's getting that one right. there's the back page that I was talking about of the agency disclosure. This is that state form. And, you know, I just remembered a question that came up before from that last one about the family relationship and what you have to disclose. So I just want people to know, so there's the Mrs. Murphy exemption with sometimes if you own a property and you live in it, that you have a little bit more say on who you rent it out. That's not true for real estate agents. So no matter what, it was a duplex and I used to live in it, because as a real estate agent, we're held to a higher standard. Even if it's my own house, I have to abide by federal fair housing guidelines and Ohio fair housing guidelines. There's no exemption for us on anything. I mean, you just can't. So people are always like, well, I thought if you lived in the property, you could have a little bit more say if you didn't want a single man under there or whatever. Maybe I didn't want a baby, or I don't know. Doesn't matter, because I have my license, my real estate license. We are always held, our properties, our showings, we can't pick and choose. We're just, because we're licensed. So that came up before with someone. I just wanted to bring it up. All right, we're done with agency. We've got land use and calculations. No, we don't. We've got land use, property disclosures, and then calculations. But it's flying by, right? This is like so much fun. Don't answer that. Before breaking ground, a blank must be obtained from the city. A lot of right answers. Good, easy enough. Building permit. I think there's only one question on this. I lied, 2, darn it. The legal description of a property based on points of beginning, distances, directions, and degrees is what? If you want a chart, there's another chart right here, types of land legal description. If you don't know these, it's just knowing the, you just got to know the definitions of them. And in this case, it's meets and bounds. And this actually, I got to clean this up. The correct, all the answers are in here. So lot and block. And then rectangular survey. They're all in here. Darn it, another one. Generally, the taking of private land by government bodies for public use is governed by due process and is accomplished through. Oh, this caused problems last time, didn't it? One is a verb, one is a noun, but everyone's getting it right anyway, so we're fine. I forget why this was such a hard question for people. Maybe it's the way it was worded, but I'll look into that one. A non-conforming use. I'm going to give you guys a clue. If more than one is probably correct, you can assume the third one's correct, which would mean that that is the correct answer. All right, Megan. So the 2 that I always know that are correct are, it's a conforming use before the zoning change and was probably grandfathered in. So, you know, A, I just ignore because I don't really know what that's asking, but I say, okay, B and C, yep, I know that's right. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that it's going to be all of the above. Holy cow, I don't know why there's so much land use. For a buyer to be certain that a property has no encroachments, she should obtain what? So your title company will actually send out for the survey, which I think is why they probably put the abstract and title search, but a lot of people got this one right. The title company sends out for the survey. And that's an example of what a survey would look like. This is a very old looking survey from Austin, Texas. They do it very weird in Austin. Ours are not so difficult looking. Classic Texas. All right, here we go. We're almost done. A buyer signs an agreement to purchase a home. The seller has not provided a property disclosure form. When the buyer requests the property disclosure form, the seller refuses to provide it. What rights are available to the buyer? Yeah, so you actually, everyone's getting this right. It is C. C is the correct answer. If you, every property you purchase, there needs to be disclosures. Even if it says, you know, investor flipped the home, not aware of anything, not aware, or have not lived in the home, they still need to sign that and provide that. You can't, you need to have some record that you received the property disclosures. If you don't, you can give that, send that you know, in that contract. On your on page 5, I believe, of the contract, I think there's 6 pages, I hope. On page 5, it says the buyer has or has not received the property disclosures, and then it gives how many days till you ask to receive that before you can walk away. A sales agent is taking a buyer through a home. The sales agent has not viewed the basement. When asked about the condition of the basement, the sales agent says that the basement is completely dry. What is true? Take your time reading that. Perfect. So misrepresentation, the basement could be dry, right? She just didn't go down and see it. She's just saying that it's dry. If she went down and saw that there was, you know, damp, it was wet, and then said it was dry, that's fraud. One has like a malicious intent, one's, you know, on purpose, calculated, and the other is not. So in this case, misrepresentation is just negligence, fraud is that lie. Uh-oh, it's that time. Calculations. You're gonna need more than one paper for this. I didn't review these, so I hope I know what's happening. All right, Lainey owns a home in the mountains. If the home's appraised market value is $540,000 and the loan balance is $135,000, what's the loan to value ratio? We're starting with a really easy one. Loan to value. So when in doubt, we're going to divide. Oh, crap. Loan to value, divide the loan balance by the market value. So we had our loan balance, 135,000. Why is this not working? Divided by 540, 25%. So this is when I was telling everyone about like when something doesn't appraise and you have to bring cash to the table, the loan to value is what can't change on your, when you purchase a property. So if your loan to value is, you know, 25% or something, that's how much you have out. If it appraises higher than what your loan to value is currently at, that's when you have to do the appraisal bridge and bring more cash. That's what was happening all summer. If it changes the loan to value. A parcel of land described as the southwest quarter, southeast quarter, and northwest quarter of section 13 sells for $500 per acre. What is the sales price of this property? Amy, we'll talk about that. Yeah, you can bring a calculator to class. It has to be like the non-graphing, like the most basic, like Walgreens calculator you can find. They also provide a calculator on the computer if you don't have one. So you have to know how many acres in the section. And we know that answer is 640, right? So we do 640 divided by a quarter. So divided by 4, divided by 4, divided by 4. Times 500. So if this one seems difficult for people, just actually draw out what would be a section. And then do, okay, there's the quarter. So you have your acres. And you have 640 divided by 4, divided by 4, divided by 4. What is that total? And then that number multiply by 500 and you get A. A lender charges 3 discount points on a loan. The buyer is buying a $100,000 home and getting an 80% mortgage. How much in discount points would the borrower be required to pay? %% of 100,000 is 80,000, right? Discount points are on the loan amount. 3% of 80,000, 2,400. So far, we seem to all be doing well. We're good, right? We're doing okay here. No questions? All right. This one's going to trip people up, I think. So when I see a math question that's this long, just read the last sentence. How much did the listing salesperson receive? All right, so I'm looking for the listing agent, how much they made. That's what I'm looking for. A house sold for $275,000 with a 6% commission. The listing broker paid the selling broker 50%. The listing salesperson and the selling salesperson each received 40% of what the broker received. How much commission did they make? And I'm seeing a lot of answers. I'm going to go through this because I don't know what the right answer is yet. So a house sold for $275,000. So I'm going to do $275,000 and I'm going to multiply it by 0.06 to get the full commission. That's 16.5, which also is answer A, but we're not done yet. All right, the listing broker paid the selling broker 50% of that. Now I'm going to divide that by 2. And I'm at 8250, which is also an answer. And then the listing salesperson and the selling salesperson each received 40% of what their broker received. So I need to do 40% of that. I'm going to multiply. Oh, crap. I did 0.04 instead of 0.4. And then I get 3,300. So did everyone understand that? So I did 6% of 250,000, 275,000. I got 16.5. I split that in half. I got 8,250. And then I took 40% of that and I got 3,300. Sucks, right? It's not fun. All right. I don't know why this one tripped people up last time, but if we need to go through it, 3 rectangular lots all contain a total of 21,000 square feet. At 100 feet deep, how much front footage does each have? So let's think here. There's 3 of them. So why don't we just take 21,000 and divide it by 3? 21,000 divided by 3 is what? 7,000. So we know each one of these rectangles has 7,000. And we know it's 100 feet deep. So I'm gonna take 7,000, I'm gonna divide it by 100. And what's my answer? So something we're gonna have to do again. Okay, I think I can draw here. Yes. Are you guys ready to see how fancy I am? All right. So here we have 1, we have 2. Pretend that these are all exactly the same, all right? The total of these are 21,000, but there's 3 of them. So I want to divide 21,000. So I know that this is 100 feet deep, right? Oh, look how this is serious, guys. Now this is like the best grammar class you've ever taken in your life. Just wish that could move. Okay, that unfortunately couldn't. I will learn how to do this better. All right, so I know that they're 100 feet deep. I know that in total, we're at 21,000. So 21,000 divided by 3, right? So one of these totals is gonna be 7,000 total. So 7,000 divided by 100 means each frontage foot, each one would have what? Got it? That little drawing thing was pretty cool, huh? I don't know, can I delete them now or what? Oh God. There we go. I'm a pro. All right. All right, amortization schedule, my favorite type of questions. 2 people are buying a property for 165,000 at 7% interest. The monthly maximum payment they can afford is close to 1,000. I had to change this because it's not actually 1,000. Their loan has to be for a minimum of blank years to pay it off and stay within their budget. Please raise your hand if you understand amortization. So we're gonna go through this. Do you guys want me to go through this one together and then give you another one to do on your own? Okay, so right now on your page, we're gonna look at 15 years at 7% interest. So I'm at a loan amount. So does everyone see? Now here we go. This is gonna be so fun. 15, right? At 7%, what's our total at? $899. At 20, it's 776. At 25, it's 707. And at 30 years, it's at 666. Right? So I think what confused people the last time I taught this is that the closest they can afford is around 1,000, but the amortization schedule is by every 1,000. So this is not necessarily normal that their monthly payment being 1,000, but you're going to take 165,000 and divide it by 1,000. So let me just clear this up. No matter what, if you have the amortization schedule and they give you a property amount, if they give you a down payment, obviously take away the down payment because they're not going to finance that. But in this case, there's no down payment, right? So I'm at 165 and I'm going to divide it by 1,000 because I'm looking at the amortization schedule. No matter what this number was, we will divide it by 1,000. So what is that? 165, right? So if we're going to plug in the answers, because this is how I do the math questions on here, I like to plug it in. I'm going to do the 20 or 25. I don't want to do 15 or 30 because I need to know what's the closest to 1,000. And I don't want to waste my time if I start at 15 to keep going down. So we're going to do 25 just because for fun. So 25, what's the interest rate at 25? Right? Everyone sees on the chart, it's 7.07. So I want you to do 165 times 7.07 and tell me what that answer is. So 165 times 7.07. Put your answer in the chat. So that's more than 1,000, right? So if I started with 25, I know I don't even have to do the math. What's the answer have to be? I want more years to pay this off, right? Exactly. But for fun, we're going to do it. So 165 at 30 years. So I take 165 and I multiply it by the rate at 30 years. What's my monthly payment? There it is. Awesome, Johnny. All right, we're going to do that again, and I'm not going to walk you through. I'm not going to help you here. We'll do it after. I have to clean all my marks again. All right, I'm not giving you a multiple choice. What is the monthly payment? Oh, 8.5. This is like back in the day, because now our rates are at like 4%, right? What's the monthly payment for a $250,000 30-year loan at 8.5? So 30 years at 8.5. So what number are we plugging in? Holly, you don't have to memorize the amortization schedule. This will be available. It's going to be actually on the wall when you go to take the test. So I take how much is our house? 250,000. And I'm going to divide that by 1,000 because the monthly interest for the amortization schedule is always 1,000. So I divide it by 1,000. I'm at 250 and I'm going to multiply it by my 30-year rate at 8.5, which is 7.69. Did everyone see that? My monthly payment is $1,922.5. All right, so we're going to do this one more time. So we're going to make it more realistic. What is the monthly mortgage payment? You guys want to get fancy here? What's the monthly? Yeah, Susan's like no. All right, what's the monthly mortgage payment for a house that's $300,000 with a down payment of $25,000 at a 4% rate for 30 years? I'm going to type that out on here. And I just made this one up, so I'll do it with you guys in a second. So I said, purchase price. I got fancy with the down payment, so there's your first clue. All right, so there it is. The purchase price, $300,000, down payment, $25,000 at 4% at 30 years. So 30 years, 4% is going to be right here. All right, and I'm going to go. So I take 300,000 and I'm going to subtract my down payment, right? Because that's not getting finance, it's cash. So I'm at 275, and I'm going to take that. I'm going to take 275 and I'm going to divide that by 1,000 because I'm using my amortization schedule. So I'm at 275. I'm going to multiply that by 4.77, and my monthly payment. Let's look at your answers. Awesome. I got 1,311.75. So the craziest part about this is you guys should all know the purchasing power right now that people have. Our finance guys just did a class maybe a month ago now where they actually said someone could purchase today, like 20,000 more than they could have. Actually, no, I think it was more like 50,000 more than they could have 4 years ago, because the interest rates are so low. So this payment is pretty much the same for that $165,000 home, right? But it's at $250,000. Any questions on the amortization schedule? Does that help? I hope so. Awesome. All right. So this is what we just went over. All right, state specific. This is the fastest part of the test because so many people pass the state one, and I just kind of want to show you guys what you need to know for it. So there's 4 questions on the state governance of real estate profession. A lot of these are going to be part of what we already did. So the only question I think I have in here is about the real estate recovery fund. Is everyone familiar with this? The real estate recovery fund for Ohio. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I guess everyone probably saw the answer, huh? All right, so this would be the state specific portion. Yeah, okay. I'm trying to scroll down the chat, and if my cursor isn't on it, I go to the PowerPoint and it just pops through. All right, I think one of these, I'm going to give you another answer for a test, but 250,000 is the amount that they can fine per violation. And then we're going to see here what it needs to be between the amount before they can start taking money. Under the Ohio Real Estate Recovery Fund, the commission shall impose a special fee not to exceed $10 annually on each license, filing a notice of renewal if the fund is less than what? What does that fund need to be between? Yep, you guys are all right, between 500,000 and 2 million. If it's over 2 million, they're not going to charge you any money. And this is like our insurance fund, right? This is like if something messes up and they have to pay out for something we did, they'll take it out of the recovery fund. We might have to pay it back with interest. If the superintendent pays any amount, I just kind of told you this. But if they have to pay on our behalf, what do you think is going to happen to your suspension? I mean, to your license? Yeah, I kind of gave that one away. So this, just think of common sense. If they're going to pay for something that you've done, they're probably hoping you're going to pay them back because you want to go back into real estate. If they just want you out of real estate, they're not going to pay for you in hopes that you're going to pay them back, right? So if they're paying for something on your behalf, it's going to be suspended, not revoked. And that just makes sense, right? I mean, okay, you can't do this again. We're going to pay for you, pay us back. I'm not going to pay you back. All right, state specific, this is on license law. We handled so many of these questions about advertising, Ohio fair housing. So much of this was already in that national portion. I just want you guys to see what these would be. So I'm going to study this section a lot more than that previous section for the state test, right? I already gave you guys this answer. That commission shall suspend for a minimum of 2 months or revoke the license. Found guilty of second, fair housing, right? First might not have anything but a class, maybe a fine. Third, they're out. Fourth would never happen. So we know this just from our answers earlier. Yep, everyone's getting that one right. And then these are exemptions in Ohio. You should probably know a lot of this. We know we have retirement homes, that's allowed. Private clubs. I did mention this as well. So if a broker, the licensed broker passes away, what happens to those listings? If there's a broker within the business entity, they would take over it. That way we have that insurance that Howard Hanna wouldn't lose those listings. And I'm just going through this pretty quick because we talked about it. So think about, this is kind of tough because there are kind of two right answers here, but think about what would be the most realistic in that case. The state doesn't want to have to worry about it. If there's already a broker within the brokerage, another one, they're going to give it to them. What protected group is covered under the Ohio Civil Rights but not federal? It's military status and one other. Yep. We all remember that chart, ancestry. And then agency law, we did a ton of this in the class as well, but remember who's, licensed personal assistant or unlicensed personal assistants, how are they, what are they allowed to do, the difference between the code and the canon. You'll remember that, I hope, for the rest of your life. The salesperson will have a buyer sign the Ohio agency disclosure form. We are all getting this one correct. Oh, come on, guys. You remember this? Ohio's agency disclosure is different than the Consumer Guide to Agency. The Consumer Guide to Agency is a form that explains how agency works in Ohio, and within the broker, it goes to everyone. You're going to have a packet of them in the back of your car, no matter what, someone signs it. Agency disclosure, you're disclosing to the other parties your agency relationship. It's going to always include a buyer and a seller and transaction specific. So the answer to this again is what? I'm going to give this with my purchase contract, which we also call, starts with an O and it ends with a FR. Agency disclosure with the offer, always. All right, licensing requirements. You should all know this. I think there's one fun last question. Which of the following is required to receive your real estate license? There it is. Must sit and pass the exam, which we are so excited and ready to do. I look thrilled in my little Bitmoji, don't I? All right, I know we're not that excited. All right, a few things I'm going to show you quickly. Confusing word pairs, I'll send this to you. Again, you can practice, you can look at stuff. I hope you remembered to write down the different words that you weren't familiar with, and you can put your flashcards together. I'm not going to read this to you guys. You can read it, but don't over study. I know that sounds silly. Take some breaks. Let your brain really integrate that information. Sometimes when people cram, they end up forgetting a lot more because they're not actually putting that to use. If you're going to study 4 sections, you're going to study contracts, agency, practice, and calculations. Technically, I say study financing because calculations, you don't really have to study for that. You just got to know how to work the math part. Financing, agency, practice, and contracts. Good luck. I'm going to point out one thing here. On my ridiculously messy desktop. Yeah, I know. There's a lot happening. Everyone back off. All right. So there is a Crammer site that I have taken some test questions on. I have taken some of the test questions from some books that I had been using, so I have to reword them so I don't get in trouble for copyright, which is why, Susan, it was not on there yet. Don't tell anyone. But under test prep, you will see the, oh, I lied, about the test. Yeah, that's where I went. You'll see the PSI bulletin. That's who is going to tell you how they administer the test. That's going to have practice test questions. It's going to have all that stuff. I said the first thing you want to do, you want to download the PSI bulletin. There's your exam. Excuse me, your exam application is already on here, so you don't have to go and download it from the state site if you don't want to. And then the Ohio Department of Real Estate site. Test prep. This is the mother load. All right, this has flashcards for you. It has a full practice test. And then these will be turned on soon. But I wanted to point out down here are 5 different exams, and each one will give you what subject that test question is part of. So it will say, oh, this is agency, and you'll be able to write down again in your study guide that you're creating, okay, I need more help with agency. The big 3, this goes over everything but financing and calculations. So contracts, agency, real estate practice, example questions, important vocab words. All right, so just some good stuff out there for you guys to know, the big ones. And then once you've, let's see here, once you've passed the test, you can come back here and we'll talk about Jumpstart and Fast Start, but I wanted to point out that this is all available to you guys, as well the PowerPoint that I shared. I will send that to you, and I will send a recording of this, this video. If you are still on and breathing, if you could put in the chat what office, excuse me, you are part of, what manager referred you to Howard Hanna. If you could put that in there. If you registered with this class, which you all must have because you're on, I would have gotten your email, and I will send that all to your email. I saw a few questions here. So those tests are, I think, 50 questions. I will send you that link. I think it is wonderful too, Susan. There's a
Hey,
lot
I
of
have a question.
Yes.
On those exam tests, the practice ones, do I have to put my email in? Because it asks you to put your email in.
Yes. It's gonna, that's how it's gonna send you the results. I don't look at that. I don't nothing else happens with it. It's just a Google form.
Okay, thanks.
I won't spam you. All right, well, that's pretty much all I got. I'll stop recording, make sure that everyone has put in what office they are with. And then again, once you guys